A massive business story with multiple ramifications later in the day. Glencore is going to find out how much it's going to cost to pay their fine later today. British prosecutors have laid out the web of bribery and corruption by the mining giant. Let's head over to our UK correspondent. It's Olly Barrat who's following this for us. Hello to you, Olly. Good to have you with us again. So the company admitting to bribery across Africa, and after a serious fraud office probe, they're about to get hit with a big stick, aren't they? What are we expecting from the London judge? Because also remember, of course, Glencore, JSE listed company, very, very damaging for them.
Indeed, and Glencore already having to pay over $1 billion in fines to US officials for similar allegations that have been proven by the United States officials. And as I say, Glencore pleading guilty to those earlier in the year. In terms of what we are expecting here, we had a sort of sentencing hearing on Wednesday, which set out some of the details over which Glencore is pleading guilty in British courts. And on Thursday, if not Friday, but probably Thursday today, we do expect that the judge will hand down his sentencing. Now, in the hearing so far, the bribery that Glencore is essentially admitting to in these African countries amounts to what's described in these court processes as harm, worth around $128 million. Now, the way that these fines can be worked out is that we could be expecting something in the region of 3 times that so-called harm in the form of fines, and so therefore we're probably looking at something like $300 or $400 million worth. So something less than the fines that were agreed to with US authorities, but certainly significant numbers nonetheless.
And it is something out of a drama novel almost, when you start hearing what's been coming out of the inquiries as well, using private jets to fly cash into some of these countries. I mean, you just can't make some of this up, can you?
That's right, and we're looking at bribes worth $25 million or so over a period of years that were paid to corrupt officials, often to try and secure oil cargoes below market rates. We're talking about cases in Nigeria, Cameroon, Ivory Coast, Equatorial Guinea, South Sudan. South Sudan is one of those countries in which we have that example of a private jet being used. We're told about a jet being chartered shortly after South Sudan's independence in 2011, being flown into the country with $800,000 in cash on board. And we heard in court yesterday that soon after the flight had touched down in South Sudan, indeed we heard in court from the SFO lawyer, a serious fraud office lawyer, within days of the arrival of the cash in Juba in 2011, Glencore's fortunes changed. And that's the picture that we are hearing from across these African countries in which these events took place, that the money that was moving around, often, as you say, in private jets, was getting to these locations, was being used often by intermediaries to bribe corrupt officials. And when it was getting there, this money, Glencore was finding that it was securing access to products and commodities in the market earlier than rivals and at better rates than rivals. And that's, of course, why Glencore and its subsidiaries, its intermediaries, were taking part in this bribery and this corruption. We also heard in court yesterday from the lawyer who was acting on behalf of Glencore, saying the conduct was inexcusable. The company unreservedly regrets the harm caused by these offences, and insisting at the company. In yesterday's hearing, the chairman of Glencore was there, and we are told that that is supposed to represent the fact that the culture has changed at the company, and that this type of thing, this type of behaviour is not happening, Glencore insists, in any of its units anywhere now in the world. But as you say, a significant moment today when we get that fine, if indeed it does come down, not least because this is the first type of prosecution we've had in this country from the SFO, and that therefore signals there could be more action like this to come.
So when we talk about the SFO as well, just in closing, Olly, I see as well that the prosecutor is saying some 11 ex-staff members, I know you alluded to this, 11 ex-staff members being investigated. It's an issue we have in our country. Maybe just let's end our conversation here, where a lot of companies are getting fines for things like corruption and money laundering and backhand dealing, like Glencore in this case, but no one ends up in jail. Is there an expectation there's going to be jail time, or are we just talking about a slap on the wrist with a big check?
Well, let's say a possibility, because as you mentioned, those individuals, some of them have not been named in this case because the lawyers didn't want to harm the possibility of a future case against those individuals. The SFO is going to decide within months whether it has really the ability in legal terms to prosecute those individuals. And again, that would be a first in this country for the SFO if it does move in that direction. Certainly a lot of campaigners are saying that is exactly what must happen in cases like this, that individuals need to be held responsible as well as companies getting fines.
Absolutely. Olly Barrat, I appreciate the update for us. Early morning in London. Olly, I'm sure going to have a busy day. We'll get an update later in the day. I'm not sure if directly from Olly, but also other analysts. But I'm sure Olly will update us as a massive fine is expected for Glencore later in London.